We keep you alive. We are live on Pasito Radio, and this afternoon I'm very honored to be able to interview Mr. Marie Kofi Gan, who is an aspirant candidate in Ghana, our own Ghana. So this afternoon, that's an honor for me to have you on board, for us to have a discussion. Because as Ghanaians in the diaspora, we also want to know what is going on, who is who, and also you're welcome to Pasito Radio.
Thank you, Abuna. Can I call you Abuna if that's okay?
It's all right. Yes, I love it.
Right. So you can likewise call me Kofi.
Okay.
So thank you for having me.
This afternoon we are here, and this is my first time of really I've seen your interviews and everything, but this is the first time I've got the privilege to interview you. So this afternoon, I want you to tell me who you are, because I have to know, all the viewers also have to know who you are, where you were brought up, and we want to really dive into the sea to know what is there.
Thank you, Abuna. Like I said, a pleasure to be here. My name is Marie Kofi Gan. I was born in Keta. I grew up with my grandfather as a fisherman, and so I was fishing between the sea and the lagoon, and I also sold fos, what we normally call obroniwewu, in the Keta market every 3 days. Market days was every 3 days. So that's a little bit about my childhood. At some point, I traveled to go and be with my father in Nigeria, spent some time also in Liberia, and then we came back during the second coup in, I think, '83, right after the coup. And so we've been back in Ghana quite then since. Went to Gita Secondary School, and then became a chartered certified accountant, and worked throughout Ghana, worked across the length and breadth of this country. Either auditing government projects or auditing international programs that were being run in Ghana, or auditing private businesses. So I did my bit in Ghana here, and then I decided to go out and study for a postgraduate certificate course in the University of Greenwich. And so I went to the UK. And worked for a bit. Interestingly, it's good I'm having this conversation with people in the diaspora. So I came to the UK, thought I could get a job in accounting while studying. I didn't get a job, so some of my favorite jobs I ended up doing were I worked as a cleaner, I worked as a construction site person, and I think my favorite was working for a security guard, working as a security guard, which was rather exciting. So that has been a bit of my journey. And then, of course, I started to get more roles in the areas of my expertise. And so I ended up working with the likes of Christian Aid. I worked with the Commonwealth of Nations Secretariat. I worked for International Alert, and I worked for Crown Agents. And, it became much, much better. And God has been good to me. Because of my engagement with some of these organizations, I've worked in over 20 countries in Southeast Asia and in Africa. And so a number of years back, I decided to head back to Ghana, and so that's where I am now.
Okay, because I think I was going to ask you about the diaspora, but it seems that you have already tapped into the diaspora. Because I know from the Ghana you said, and I know when I read when you go on your page to read, it tells you about the diaspora, but you've already touched the diaspora. So living in Ghana, coming and to live in the UK, and then you decided to go back. What really motivated you to go back?
Oh, there were a number of things. There were really a number of things. So for many years, I have been involved from a distance, talking about Ghana politics, suggesting things that we felt needed to be done even differently. In 2015, I published this book called The Gun Chronicles, which sort of showed basically what I thought were the things that needed to change. I took about half a year out of work to research and write that, published it in Ghana in the hope that it would change some things. Things were not changing. That was one of the biggest negotiations because at the point we felt that we couldn't, sit on the fence anymore. And then, of course, there were also changes at my workplace. I had been posted to. I'd done a lot of work in South Sudan, and after that, I felt there was a need to move away from that kind of work, working in war zones and all that. So there were some, how do I put it, career-related, some politically motivated, some even personal. And so all that sort of came together, and I felt there's a need to actually finally relocate. I mean, it was a real struggle, especially being in the diaspora, because your heart tells you that yes, you need to be in Ghana, and your mind tells you that if you don't know people in the system, you can't survive in Ghana. So don't go. I had a lot of warnings from friends who said, "Look, we've had friends who have gone and they've come back to the UK." And I said, you know what? Let's do this for a year. If I don't come back in a year, then know that I will stay for good. And so, but the lucky thing, I think I was lucky because the last company I worked for had an office in Ghana, and so I was involved in quite a number of projects here in Ghana. So almost every year I was here for a good number of period of stay. So that didn't that helped the transition process is what I'll say.
Now you've moved from the diaspora and you are in Ghana. You didn't end there. What motivated you to decide that, oh, as for this time, I'm going to stand as a presidential candidate? What really motivated you to do that? Because it's not easy. It's not a step that you decide one day. So what really brought that passion, the cry for you to decide to do that?
It was a number of things. It was a whole lot of things. I mean, when I came back, one of the things and I've been doing this even before I came back, was to so I run this mentoring program for young people whenever I am here, and I've been doing that. But more and more as I did that, it became obvious to me that the structural changes we needed to make sure that young people across this country gain the opportunities they needed to push their lives forward was not happening, systemically. It was not happening intentionally. Plus or minus, a few would get, some doors open for them because they were connected to this or that politician or political party. But the majority of our youth were not getting the opportunities they needed to push their lives forward. And when I engage with businesses, you realize that a lot of businesses feel a lot of vindictiveness. If NDC comes into power, for example, then all the other parties related people who are in business will have to go underground. If this other one comes into power, everybody else has to go underground. And then I travel to the rural areas, and one of the things you find is that there's a total disconnect between what they actually need to change their lives and what government seems to want to do for them. And so it was all these things. And then when you talk to international business people, and I have a few friends who have been here in Ghana, some of them have even become Ghanaians, but who are people who came from elsewhere. And they tell you the level of corruption makes it almost impossible to do business, in a genuine and a decent manner. So it was all these things that kept coming, and it got to a point I felt, this is no more something that we can all just sit on the fence and talk and say government should do this, government should do that. If they had wanted to, they've had 27 years to do that. And I just felt, we got to a point where we couldn't say we have another 27 years to hope or to waste and expect that something would happen. It had to take some of us to stand up and say, look, anybody who can, anybody who is capable, anybody who is independent-minded, you are not party biased or party focused, you have Ghana's interests at heart, then come on board and let's make something different happen. So that's the journey I've been on.
Okay. As I'm listening to you, we're talking about Ghana now, and then you were living in the UK. Can I ask your identity at the moment? Because Ghanaians need to know who is coming to start in. But you're talking about Ghanaians and you've moved from the diaspora, because I am in the diaspora and I know. So I want to know, because if we don't have the right person, that means if things go west, they can just go back. So now, as we are talking, you've lived in the diaspora. Can I ask you, have me ask you, what nationality are you now?
Oh, I am a full-blooded, through and through Ghanaian. So that's an interesting question because most people still think I'm in the. In fact, I had an interview earlier, and I was thought to have been in the. I've moved away from the UK. I have renounced my citizenship. I renounced my citizenship even before I made my announcement. In March last year.
Exactly who is that? Because if you have not renounced, you can slip away. So now we want to know as Ghanaians, and then we want. That's why I'm asking that question for us to know who you really are.
Sorry, was that another question?
No, that's what I'm saying. I'm asking because if you have the passion, then if somebody can be able to renounce one nationality, that tells you where the person is going. So thank you for answering.
Oh no, absolutely.
Yeah, so absolutely. Mr. Kofikan is saying he is a Ghanaian. He has renounced it, so he is a Ghanaian. So we know who we are dealing with at the moment. So how has this journey?
I was just looking around my desk to see if I had the document to show. I had it some time back because I was on a show. Okay, I was trying to look for it to see if I could just because this thing seems to keep coming up.
Yeah, especially when you live in Ghana, you don't know these things.
That's the document with a seal. I don't know if your camera will be able to pick it, but that's a seal.
Yeah, when you shift it to where you are on your left, we can see it. Yes, we can see a little bit. Okay. The declaration of
renunciation, and then there's the stamp at the back, so you see that it's fully.
Oh, viewers, this man means business. He really means business. Thank you very much.
So
it takes somebody.
Thank you, I appreciate
it. To be able to do this. So we thank you for that answer, so that viewers will be clear of it. So how to move on? How has this journey? Because it's a journey. This journey of you standing in as presidential candidate. How has this? How has the journey been? But this journey is not an easy journey, and you have already embarked on the journey. So how has the journey been from your start to this stage that we are in?
It's been a mixed baggage, Abuna. It's been rewarding in the sense that Ghanaians feel a sense of hope now. At least a good section of some Ghanaians feel some level of hope now. It's been rewarding also to know that for the first time Ghanaians feel that there is indeed an alternative to what they've always known. But of course, we also know that we're in an environment where politics has never been refined in a lot of ways. And so there's a lot of things that happen. People trying to say all sort of things about you that are not true. People taking swipes at you. But I've learned to accept some of these things as part of the process of this journey. The good thing is that over the period, we've set a standard for ourselves that people have come to expect from us. And so people have always been expecting a very high level of integrity from everything we do, accountability from everything we do. What I do need to say, however, is also that quite a number of youth have come on board what we're doing. And that is hugely encouraging because I used to be very worried about the youth, whether they understand that there is a need for them to be involved in changing the process for their own future. And we've been blessed to have a lot of other elderly folks who have said to us, you know what, we made a mistake with the choices we made in the past and we are happy to correct them now. So it's been hugely positive. Yes, there's the barrier that has been created over the last 27 years. The barrier of the instead of politics in some areas, you have monetics. Everybody you get to engage with will tell you that you need money. You need to come and pay money to get this thing done. But on the other hand, we've also had people who have said, you know what, I am in this because I believe the change is necessary. So there's always that you win some, you lose some sort of mathematics we have to continue dealing with every step of the way. But yes, I would say that if there is anything that has messed up our politics is the fact that money has been used for almost everything. And so we've taken out the whole volunteerism in people's minds and hearts. And it is only now that we see that coming back. But yeah, a lot has been done wrong to our democracy in this country.
I will jump to the question because since you've touched the youth, I'm going to speak on that now. What plans have you got for the youth? Because they are our leaders. Future leaders are the youth now. So what plans have you got for our youth?
Oh, a number of things. A good number of things. I can't even know where to start. I mean, with the youth generally, what we are trying to do is to invest in the young people. And I say that because over the years, a lot of money has been invested in other people's pockets, but never in the youth. So, for example, in the area of education, one of the things we want to do is to move us back to practicalized education. The theory has become excessive. You know, young people study, get into our educational cycle for 13 years, 14 years, 12 years, only to come out and be told that, yes, you have a certificate, but you know, you don't have what it takes that the industry is needing. And I think we need to really shift that. And so one of the big drives we have for education is to make education a bit more in tune with what industry needs. So for example, we want to bring industry players into the curriculum setting process. For example, we want to ensure that very young people, and we're doing a pilot project where we're going to take 3 regions in Ghana. We're going to select a few secondary school, primary school, and nurseries and universities, and we're going to make sure that their learning mode is very high tech. So, for example, give them iPads or pads to see whether there is a shift in the level of their, you know, their growth educationally, their growth mentally, than those still in the traditional way of delivering education. And these are things we need to do to convince ourselves that this is the direction to go. So we do want to invest in the youth largely. If you think about even the infrastructure, so far, every time we talk about infrastructure, learning infrastructure, it's always about L block, classroom, C block, D block, E block. But we need to move from that. I want to see an educational environment where even when the teacher has left the classroom, the student is still in the position where they can continue learning. So I'll give you an example. I don't know if you're aware, but one of the biggest problems in our educational system is that if you are in the middle belt to down south, your level of quality of education is quite assured. Once you go from the Borno region all the way up to the very north, the quality of education is terrible.
It is.
And so one of the things we have decided we want to do to sort of equalize that quality of education across board, so that if you're in the north, you don't feel like, oh, you don't have access to certain teachers or certain quality of personnel, is that we do want to build a platform where every educational resource at every level, whether primary, secondary, GSS, tertiary, is on there, that is accessible across the country by every student. So that we don't have this situation where if you are in the north, you cannot get access to certain material. I taught in Nkwanta, which is the OT region now, when I was doing my national service. And I can tell you on authority, when I went in there were young students who were about to write SHS, second SHS exams. And I was supposed to go and teach them chemistry. Some of these students had not even seen titration before. They have never seen a litmus test moving from blue to red or red to blue for acidity or for base. And it was real disheartening, and it is not changed. And so we want to have a situation where young people, wherever they are in the country, have access to the same quality of education across board. And one of the things I say with this particular program I've talked about is that if this thing was already running, COVID coming would not have changed anything in our educational cycle, because everybody would have still been able to access education wherever they are in this country. Yeah. And so there are fundamental changes we want to get the youth. We talk about employment. We have a whole lot of plans for them in terms of employment. We have said, on the one hand, we want to ensure that there is a situation where every young person would have at least 2 basic skills. So we're doing what we're calling a multi-skilling, so that those who have even come out of the university or come out of the schooling cycle or have not gone into the schooling cycle and are out there unemployed, need something to do, we have a position where they can have, and this is something that's going to be done regionally. Every region would have a training ground anyway, where you can go out there, acquire at least a minimum of 2 skills, a maximum of 4. Let people go in there and acquire skills in customer care, because there are a lot of jobs you can get just by having customer care skills. Let them go out there and get a skill set in factory working, because once you are trained for factory working, you have a default to be able to employ into any factory that sets up close to you. Let people have different skill sets, so that even if you're an accountant and you don't find a job in accounting immediately, you still have the ability to, get something doing and live decently by doing so. So that's generally the plans we have for youth, and I could go on and on and on. We have things.
Yeah, education. There's something that bothers me, because this year we happened to go to. You were talking about the north, but I am just talking about part of eastern region, between what do you call it? You drive from Accra, and less than 2 hours you are in that place, and then you see children, because I happen to go there because of Ghana diaspora women that we want to eliminate school under trees. And I am telling you that we saw SS children, JSS children, they were studying under a tree. I mean, a tree, with our own eyes that we saw them. So now what bothers me is these children are going to do the same exams with those in the city. So in this situation, what your plans that you are saying, is it going to be that it's going to be a standard that those in the city are going to do the same exam in those areas, and they are working under trees? So when it's raining, these children are going to go home. So have you thought about all those things? That because if we are touching on education, then we have to touch education from the grassroots. One, education, lack of education make people disabled. If I mean disabled, the person is blind, the person is deaf, whatever you want to educate that person, lack of that education makes that person, the mindset will not change. So those areas, if you come as a president, are you going to tackle that for us? Because it's our youth and it's their future. We have doctors there, we have engineers, and then they happen to do this. So what are your plans down there to the very root? Because most of the time we talk about the north and then the Volta, but this one I'm talking is part of Eastern region. Very close.
Very close. Abda, there's an item here we're calling the Primary Learning Infrastructure Program.
I think if you I can tell you, Pasito Radio is the first radio station that Mr. Marek Kofi Gan has shown his renunciation. So he's a Ghanaian. We have all seen through that. Yeah. So if you put it closer like that, I think we can see that as well.
Right. I should actually send you a copy of this, but basically, there's an item that we're calling PLIP, which is the Primary Learning Infrastructure Program. And basically, Abuna, what we're thinking about doing under that program is that, yes, we are aware of learning environments that are not feasible. Every time I've been on the road, you ask those who work with me, we pick up little children who are walking on the road to the next school. We take them in our car, we drive them to wherever they're going. And I often ask the team that are with me, so you expect these young people to do as well as the guy who is sitting in a cozy classroom in Accra? And so I do feel what you're talking about. It's an everyday side, sadly. One of the things we have said we want to do, and this is a two-pronged approach. In the Primary Learning Infrastructure Program, basically we're saying we want to make sure that every school has, at least every primary school, which is the foundation for all knowledge anyway. We want to make sure every primary school, for example, has a basic learning infrastructure. Now, two things go into that: the classroom design itself and the play facilities. I think for many years, I don't know what we've done as a country when it comes to education, but we've never really understood that children learn by playing. I don't think we get that.
I also don't think we understand that a certain particular environment helps young people learn better. And so one of the things we are planning to do is to have a standard design for classrooms for children in the lower ages below 10, a standard classroom design. The reason why we want to standardize it is so that we can also in the process generate employment locally. And here's what we intend to do. If we can have a standard classroom design, we can now go, as you're saying, to the Eastern region and say, okay, here is a standard design of what the desk should look like and the items that should be hung in all the classroom, the type of blackboards to use. Here is a standard design of the play area, so that when students are on break, they can actually play because it stimulates their mind. Now, if we have these two designs that are standard, then we can say, okay, we're not going to import anything from anywhere. In the Eastern region, let the educational directorate there call for proposals from the local artisans in the areas, the welders, the carpenters, and tell them, look, here is a standard design. You don't even have to draw your own plan of the deck to produce. You don't even have to draw your own plan of the play items to build. Here is a standard plan that comes from all the way Ministry of Education. All you have to do is to bid to say, yes, I can produce this. I can produce 100 of this, produce 200 of this to be supplied to the classrooms in the Eastern region. In doing that, we've killed two birds with one stone, is what we are saying. On the one hand, we have started to ensure that the classrooms are equipped to the very basic level that will ensure that learning is stimulated, but we've also created local jobs for those in the environment. And so that is just one area of making sure infrastructure exists for learning. And we are very particular about this. Look, it goes down to the very basic level where you see, I don't know if you go to the classrooms in Ghana, you see all these cards that show an object and a letter, and then you say A for apple, B for ball, C for cat, and all that. But we want to get professionals to sit down and change all of that, because I have seen a number of those and it gets me angry. You are teaching a Ghanaian young person in primary, whatever, A for apple. That child is not likely going to see an apple all his life. And so you need to be teaching things that ensure that they can connect their education with their environment. And then there's the whole issue about reading. I mean, you talked about if people can work well in classrooms, they don't have access to education. Here's another thing that is very critical. As we sit here now, less than 25% of children who are up to 6 years old can read at their level. For me, if we can't get children at 6 years old to be reading, they have no access to education. Let's not talk about even the classroom blocks and all that. If you can't read, you have no access to education. So if for 27 years we've been told that access to education is just building more classrooms, then we need to rethink all these things. And that's exactly what our manifesto seeks to do, to get that.
Okay.
By the way, if you hear me being animated, I am just very passionate about it.
I know. I am also, because I teach, so I know what we are talking about.
All right. Okay.
My last one on the education is, have you thought about the levels that, in United Kingdom, we teach and we separate the children according to their levels. So somebody who is a low learner or low attainer, you don't mix them. But that is one thing that we're all brought up in Ghana, that they miss out. So what they will say is, you don't know anything. But it's not something that they've separated the children in the classroom. They just teach everybody together. But when we traveled, we realized, as I teach, I know that's why they have people to have one-on-one with the children, because we are not all the same. Is this something you've thought of, that when we talk about education, we will be able to come down to the children's level, that everyone will be able, so there's no here they don't do 1, 2nd, and 3rd or 4th. No, according to their level. Is there anything that we can do that we will be able to change that thing? So child that is a low attainer is now going to have their group, they separate them, and then another group. Is this something that you have in mind, or so that the children can also enjoy how the Western end also enjoy, because it's so important. So the child is good, but he can't get it when they group people. But when you have one-on-one, Have you thought about it, or is there anything in plan for that?
I think one of the things we're doing in regards to what you just talked about is largely some levels of reorientation of our teaching methods as well. Because I think you're right. One of the things we haven't done, and which is what we're seeking to correct. So there's a whole section about the human resource in our teaching environments, and that is not just to do with the pedagogy or the syllabus of how to, but it's also to do with the how of the teaching. So not just what you're supposed to teach. So usually what we have here is you get handed a syllabus, or you go through a training process, then eventually you get into the classroom, you get handed a syllabus, and off you go. And over time, what we've also realized is that we don't have continuous improvement for our teaching staff, and that's something we're hoping to correct. But onto the substantive issue we're raising, I think it's largely an issue of orientation and an issue of restructuring the standards around how we deliver learning. Because what we feel that needs to be done is that we need to be able to get young people to lead the learning process. And so in the example you gave, if somebody is feeling that there's a certain way they are not getting it, then the teacher should have some awareness in their training enough to identify that, no, this young child needs to be handled differently. And so that is the way we are thinking about it, that it's largely going to be an orientation process to ensure that teachers can identify the individual needs of children and are equipped, and this is where it is more critical for me, and are equipped to know how to handle different children and their different needs. I think you're right when you say we have moved away from the way of teaching where everybody's in the classroom, one teacher stands at the end and they just shout out, and if you pick it up, you pick it up. If you don't, well, it's up to you. You just repeat class. So we do want to get learning a bit more individualized, and that is why we are focusing on a lot more competency-based sort of learning processes, so that each of the children's competency can be individually assessed, not in a holistic manner. So that's the way we are trying to look at it.
Thank you so much. That we've realized that you have a lot about, because everything is about education. So you touch the youth, and now we've been able to touch the bottom of it, but that is the root. Papi Kolosi, how can one become his MP? Wow. Somebody has just listened to you, and the person is asking if he or she want to be an, okay, say his, want to be an MP on your team, how will that person be, or what is going to happen? So I leave it for you.
Yeah, I mean, just we'll have our Facebook pages, GAN for Ghana, GAN for the number 4 in the middle, and Ghana. So just type GAN for Ghana on Facebook. Since you're on Facebook, that's the easiest approach. Get on our Facebook page and just drop a message. My team is actually, I'm sure they're already standing by, even if I didn't say it. My team is already on standby, and we'll be checking some of those messages.
All right, thanks for that. Okay, now this journey that you are going, I know you've been going on tours and everything. How is your funding? Because it's not an easy task that you've taken upon yourself, and you've been going regions upon regions. How is your funding?
It depends on how you look at it. I mean, I have been lucky to work in some of the craziest areas in the world. I mean, when you're in a place like DR Congo or Burundi or South Sudan and all that, you know, life is very basic. I have learned to live very basic, and so nobody expects, I don't expect this of myself, that when we travel, I am in, you know, a convoy of 5 4-wheel drives and all that. So our spending is very, very minimal. We try to be very minimal, and for me that works because that's just my nature anyway. I'll gladly put on a pair of shorts or jeans and the point for us is we want to get to the people, and when we get to the people, there's no extravagance about it. You will see me sitting on the floor with people. If they are sitting on the floor, we'll eat kenke if they are eating kenke, and that's what we want to portray to people, you know. But in terms of funding, Ghanaians have been funding this. Ordinary Ghanaians like myself have stepped forward and said, you know, I'll give you an example. I think a couple of weeks back, this old lady, I think 70-year-old lady, who has been following our agenda, has already pumped up her grandchildren and children to say, you need to follow this guy. And just the other week, a couple of weeks back, she asked for our poster, the design for our poster. And we're all wondering what she was going to do with it. She actually went to a printing shop and got them to print about, I think, between 2,000 and 1,000 cities worth of posters. And she took them to her village to have them put all over the place. And so ordinary people like myself are making this happen. I'm not a rich person. I don't have a lot of money. And so it will be unthinkable to even think about where we have gotten to with this agenda. But it's happened because everyday people have decided they need to be a part of this. This time around, people want to be sure that they make it happen. They don't want to depend on somebody to say, oh, when he comes, he'll make it happen. They want to be sure that they are making it happen for themselves. And that's what is happening. We've also tried to be very, very efficient in the way we do things. We knew from the start we didn't have the kind of money the NDC and NPP had, or the kind of machinery they have. So we've been very innovative. We've been very efficient in the way we do things. And here is what I want to say to Ghanaians and yourself listening to me, is that, you see, I have always maintained that if you are running a campaign and even in that process, you cannot be efficient, you cannot be creative, you cannot deliver value for money, nobody can expect you to do so when you get into office.
Okay, as you're saying, I'm just going back to your own words. You said now you are low, but we hear them saying things to us. Oh, when we come, we will do this, we will do that. So now you are saying that you are lying low. Is it going to be the low to the end? Then the secondary, you said the convoy, but I want to ask, recently I said I happen to be in Ghana. The convoy that they go when the president is going, do you have it? I mean, what is your what are you going to do? Are you also going to be in that kind of convoy that I will have about 10 or the motors are going, the cars are going?
Oh, no.
Things. What do you think about that?
No. Abuna, I hate waste. I genuinely hate waste with a passion.
Because
I put it to Ghanaians today.
Whatever you say today, because of technology, it's something that is permanent. It's like a stamp. Whatever.
No, Abuna, I am saying this because I know it will be recorded. I know you will hold me accountable.
And we'll have it for years and years and years. So in future, we'll have to hit it back to you. So what do you think about this convoy issue?
Please, look, I don't believe in waste. In fact, some people, if the media in Ghana will be honest to you, some of them will tell you that I even still come to their office in an Uber. That's how basic I am. And so I went to a show, a station in Kumasi some time back, and right on the show, I told them, yeah, I took the STC. Why shouldn't I take the STC? I need to feel what people are feeling. Why? If the STC is working well enough, what stops me from taking the STC? Why? Because I want to be president? No. We make too many gods out of men in this country. Too many gods. And so one of the things I want to see change is that, look, let people in public office live the same life they are saying they want to give to the people they are serving. If I'm saying that we want to build a transportation system, then it is no problem when a young man saw me get out of SEC in WA, and he didn't think it was me. So he stood there for many, many minutes, saw my movement, and then he was brave enough to approach me, and then he asked, are you the Mr. Gan? I said, yes. Then he pointed to the SEC. I said, yes, I just came out of that. But we make too many gods out of being human beings in this country. So I don't see why a single person should have 5 or 7 cars, around him. Just for what? Really? For what? What value is that adding to the ordinary Ghanaians? I say these things, and I say it intentionally, that one of those cars that are following me, to be able to buy enough Toyota Corollas and send to every university where students are learning auto engineering. And their lecturer should be able to tell them, look, this year we are going to dismantle this car and fix it back. It is the only way they are going to understand auto engineering. So if we can do that, why would we have 7, 8, 9, and I've counted 13 in an instance, 13 cars following one man? For what? Even Jesus did not have 7 or 8 donkeys following him. And so I think sometimes we need to that is what I stand for anyway. This is not something I am saying. Anybody who knows me knows I'm very down to earth. And this is the change we want to see happen. Enough of the look. There's no reason why we should have a big man and the lives of people, the ordinary people, is not getting big. It's no use. I don't want to have comfort. Please, forgive me, but that's not
it's
my
our
style.
prayer that
really
it happens the way you are saying it, so that we will see the difference, that it's not about the convoy, it's about the person himself, thinking about the fellow Ghanaians, not just for them themselves alone, but for the Ghanaians. Because as you said, these cars can be used for something else. Those children under the trees, these cars can build nice classrooms for them. So I'm happy you have that kind of mindset for the nation Ghana. I read from the press, and it saddened me to see that you were among the coalition and now you are no more. Is there any way you can really tell us the reason why you are no more with the coalition?
I have.
We are following
every
step, you know, because we are following every step. We know whatever is happening.
I know.
When you go to,
I know. So I know. You see, I've tried to. As a team, we've decided. You know what? We've moved away from that chapter. And we have work to do, and so we've tried not to
but you need
give any mileage.
Because if a small group cannot be one, then we need to know much about it.
Well, you see, basically we agreed on a number of criteria.
All right.
To decide how we were going to choose a leader. One of those criteria was the outcome of the debate. Another was to ensure that the person had feet on the ground, people working on the ground. Another was to ensure the person had social media presence. We also, number 4, wanted to ensure that whoever emerges had a manifesto, a decent document to prove what they wanted to deliver to the Ghanaian people. And finally, we were hoping it would be somebody who has the machinery to be able to raise support for whatever we're doing. At some point, to cut a long story short, you know, those set of criteria were put aside. Apparently, it was too cumbersome. I felt that we needed to do it because Ghanaian people needed to see that if we wanted to replace the NDC and NPP, we needed something tangible, people who were very well structured in how they wanted to get things done. Well, anyway, long story short, that was put aside. We all agreed it was going to be the debate. The debate happened by courtesy of Imani and Joy FM. Joy FM ran 4 polls. One for their listeners on radio, one for their listeners on TV. So 2 each for their listeners on radio, 2 for their listeners on TV. That made it 4 polls. The Gun for Ghana agenda won the poll. And this is the sad bit for me, that Ghanaians stayed up late to watch the debate. Ghanaians stayed up late to watch and vote who they felt was making some sense to them. All that was done. There was a meeting, and in that meeting, you know, what do I say? The steering committee decided they weren't going to accept, you know, 3 of the votes from Joy FM on which Gun for Ghana won on. So we won 3 out of the 4 polls that were conducted by Joy FM. The steering committee decided to put all the 3 aside and go with just 1. Didn't make sense. And I said, you know what, if you can run a free and fair election at this level, you can't expect to run this at a level you're wanting to go, because the integrity starts here. And to think about it, you know, the committee that was supposed to be neutral throughout this process were themselves on the polls voting themselves. You know, so, you know, it was a whole lot. And then the final, you know, straw in all of this is that they even set the vote aside. They even set the vote aside and decided we'll just go around the room and ask every independent aspirant, who do you want to lead the coalition? Who do you want to lead the coalition? And what I said to them is, gentlemen, if this is how you were going to do it, we shouldn't have even gone for the debate. You know, I mean, this is ridiculous to say the least. So at that point, you know, we had to make a decision between staying with our promise to Ghanaians that we were also always going to show integrity in everything we did, or going with the flow simply because a few people decided that is what they wanted to do. But we pulled out largely because of the fact that we felt Ghanaians and their votes and their efforts to speak their voice out had been trampled upon, and we didn't think that was acceptable. But I mean, nothing has changed for us. We have always been campaigning way before we joined the coalition. We haven't stopped campaigning. If anything, it has even gotten a lot more intense now. There's a lot more work to do, and that's what we're focused on right now.
I'm still on the same issue. So do you think tribalism is setting in? Because recently we heard about this voter issue. Do you think tribalism is an issue in this? Because we have to call a spade a spade. So do you think tribalism, we say about racism, but the tribalism, do you think is connected with tribalism? Because we have to be honest with ourselves now.
We do have to be honest, but you see, the other thing, Abner, is that people who do things like this, they have their intentions, and unfortunately, intentions are things in people's minds. If I say there's tribalism in there right now, I'll probably be calling a spade an agricultural tool, because I don't know what is in people's mind. All I knew is that, and people can read different meanings into this, but all I knew is that Ghanaians made a choice. They spoke out loud. Their voice was cast aside. Why that is the case, nobody can know, because these are intentions in people's minds. Whether they thought about this or decided this even before the day Ghanaians went out to vote is another thing altogether. All I am saying to Ghanaians is that you have somebody whose integrity you can trust. You have somebody whose ability to stand up for what is right is solid enough for you to trust. And so, for me, that's the way forward. I mean, tribalism has always been a card politicians have played many, many years. In the past, you will hear people pitching the Ewas against the Ashantis. People pitch the Northerners against the Southerners. I mean, these are all a lot of, nonsensical acts within our politics. People forget that the Ewas and the Ashantis have always fought side by side. Ask the Otumfuo today, he will tell you the Ewas and the Ashantis have always been one people. We are intermarried, back in the days during the wars, we've always sided side by side with each other. Any successful war in this country has been a collaboration between the Ashantis and the Ewas, so I don't want to jeopardize all of that, for a mere level of politics. Politics will come and go, but people would always be here. And so I wouldn't call it whether it was an act of tribalism. All I knew is that integrity of the people who we were engaged with was questioned, and we had to step back.
Okay, my last question is going to be, we are talking about this tribalism. So now, if you become a president, are you going to sort this thing out? Because it becomes like, because it's me, where I come from, then every work around me should be, people around me should be from my side. What are you going to do about that? Because it's something very common that we can hear, we can see it around ourselves, that if the person is in power, all the people are from his side. What are you going to do about that?
No. That is certainly not something to expect from me. I've got people on my team who are Gans. I've got people on my teams who are Chims, who are Ashantis, who are Northerners. I've got people from all over. One of the things we have said from the start is that our focus is always going to be on competency. As long as you are competent and you are right for the job, you are the one taking the role. So I don't believe in tribalism. And, look, at the end of the day, Abuna, the one blood that runs through our veins, every single one of us, first and foremost, is Ghana. It's only after that we can start thinking about where you are from and, which family you are from. But the first blood, the only blood that connects all of us, our veins, is the Ghanaian blood. And so I have often said, we want to put Ghana first in everything we do. We want competency to be the watchword. We also want to make sure that meritocracy becomes an everyday word, because that's what we are looking to get done. That is what has been missing all these years. What we have now is, if you are a member of a party, that qualifies you for anything. Whether you are competent technically or not doesn't matter anymore, and that needs to stop. We've seen it over and over again. We've noticed that it hasn't moved this country forward. And yet, simply because some people are going to get something, and so which is why when we go independent, it is not just to stand as independent. It is what we are basically saying is that every person who is independent minded enough to put Ghana first are the people we want to work with. It's not about marriage simply being independent. No, that's not what it means. What it actually means is that this is an independent agenda. We are only looking for people in office who are independent minded enough to put Ghana first and everything else second.
Okay, I said my last, but I think I will this question that came into my mind. With the MPP and the NDC being the ruling for over 20-something years, what is your challenge? Because what Ghanaians know is MPP, NDC, and then you come in. What have you got any challenges? Then what are you going to do, or what do we look way forward from today? What do we expect from your team?
Well, there definitely has been challenges. I mean, I'll be naive to say there hasn't been challenges because we see them every day. The challenge has likely been that for some people, the only thing they know is NDC, the only thing they know is MPP. Oh, yes. What we have found out, however, is also that people yield to influence. So, Abuna, you are in the diaspora, for example. I can tell you for a fact that if you were to pick a phone, for example, today and call your family and say, look, you people, this is what we're going to do this December, and tell them A, B, and C why you think Marigan is a better alternative, I guarantee you a lot of people in your family will speak over. So influence plays a major part, which is what we're doing now. We're asking Ghanaians out there that, look, every single one of us has influence. As a matter of fact, if you are an NDC voter today, you are probably influenced by somebody. If you are an NDP voter today, you are probably influenced by somebody. We are simply asking Ghanaians that those of you who believe that something different needs to happen, that Ghana deserves better than what we've gotten so far, and that Marigan is the one to ensure that we build a country that works for all of us, not just a few people, then I'm asking people, use your influence. People trust you. That is why they will believe it when you tell them, look, this year, if you vote for NDC and NPP, the mess will get nastier. So vote for this man. People trust people. So it's all about those of us who can and who can see the black and the white and the red can be able to say, okay, this time around, this is got to be the white. Let's make it happen. And then begin to influence those they can influence. Your program, for example, you are doing right now is influencing people. So I said to people, look, everybody has an influence. Let's all use that influence. It took influence for NDC to have the power they have now. It took influence for NDC to have the power they have now. We as a people have just decided, you know what, we've had enough of YouTube for the last 28 years. We've given you everything we have for the last 28 years. You have not added to it. So I'm sorry. This is our country. This is our company. We've decided to run differently. We are putting you aside. We're getting a new manager to make sure that we get our money's worth. That is what Ghanaians need to do. And that is what I'm encouraging everybody else to do. You have no idea how much influence you have. So let's go out there and influence somebody.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Kofi Gan, who is the independent presidential aspirant 2020. It's a pleasure meeting you. And I thank my viewers, my listeners on TuneIn, Modern Ghana, on Facebook, through the radio, have also heard a lot this afternoon. So we pray and see what God will take you to. And we wish you, from the Pasito Radio and the team, we wish you all the best. And thanks you viewers as well. You too, please share and then let people sit down and think about it themselves. Because if they've not heard the voice of Mr. Marrick, they wouldn't know what to do. So they will hear his voice and then assess it and see if this is the right thing to do. So thank you once again.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. God bless you.